Welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swail. Today, in the third in a three-part series, Texas Talks presents Hemp in Texas. Our third guest is Scott Gates, who became a licensed Texas peace officer in 1989 and has been continually licensed for more than 36 years. Scott spent more than 20 years as a commissioned officer. He became a master peace officer in 2001 and holds an instructor certificate issued by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. Scott Gates, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
I'm excited to speak with you. You have an excellent podcast radio voice, so if you could tone it down a little bit, not to embarrass me, that'd be great. I'm just kidding. So it's truly a pleasure to speak with you. I'm excited to be doing this. As I said, you're the third in our series, Texas Talks presents Hemp in Texas. You, as a law enforcement officer, I think you'll have a unique perspective on this. Law enforcement and everything is, again, sort of used as a, I don't know if tool is the correct word, but SB3 in the regular session, SB5 now in the special session, the hemp-based THC ban. Law enforcement officers are sort of used as a tool to promote the ban by Dan Patrick and others. So I'm excited to get your perspective. I gave sort of a brief background on who you are. Would you like to expand on that?
Well, although I'm retired peace officer now, in the past, I worked for Regional Narcotics Task Force, and so I have some experience in narcotics enforcement. And when I heard the testimony by law enforcement officials, it was like a flashback to 30 years ago, and it was just, their claims were just outrageous.
So I guess THC, marijuana in that case, is classified as a narcotic, correct? Like when you say Narcotics Task Force, you guys dealt with that sort of thing?
Well, obviously, Chapter 431 is the covers of the Health and Safety Code actually covers marijuana.
Okay,
and so we did do enforcement, related to that.
Yeah. So okay, so I mean, you have experience certainly on the ground with THC related incidents with methamphetamines, cocaine, a lot of different certainly harder drugs,
right.
And the crimes that surround those. But my understanding is that you also have a lot of experience sort of testifying in front of the Texas House or Senate, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions, I've driven down to Austin and offered my opinion.
Okay. What was your first foray into that?
Well, it was when the concealed carry legislation initially came out, and law enforcement turned out in force opposed to passing the concealed carry legislation to get permits.
Yeah.
And I believe, the only law enforcement that stepped up at that time and said, no, law enforcement, this is not a concern to law enforcement. They're Chicken Little, the sky is falling, doom and gloom, dog and pony show that the administrators brought out was just not true. It wasn't based in anything close to reality.
Okay.
And so now, it turns out 30 years later, we have constitutional carry, and they were full of it then, and they're full of it now.
Okay. So in your experience back then is that there was a lot of, I don't want to say, well, I guess, yeah. I mean, it was sort of coming from an emotional standpoint, like a fear-based, don't do this because these really bad things could happen.
Oh, yeah. It was from everything from, we won't be able to hire any law enforcement officers. There'll be shootouts at every traffic accident or traffic intersection. It was just outrageous.
Yeah.
And the reality is the law enforcement who actually did the day-to-day interaction with the public and everything, they just assume that it's Texas. They assume that somebody's got a firearm.
Yeah, for sure. That we do have that that stereotype going for us.
Well, and we did 30 years ago too. And there was a lot of people who were stopped and had a firearm, but they were sent on down the road, law-abiding citizens.
Yeah. So you see that? Do you see that same thing happening now with SB5 and the law enforcement testimony?
Oh, I do. It's outrageous, the claims that they're making and the way that they're basically puppets of Dan Patrick is what it boils down to. Obviously they show up in their uniforms and they're representing their departments and they're compensated for their service. And it occurs to me that, there's another profession that's compensated for their services too. The problem is the second one doesn't pretend that they're not prostitutes.
Okay, so that's a strong allegation, but I take your meaning for sure. So with their, it seems like the fear is that, I don't know, I guess if this stays legal, the hemp-based THC, that crime will explode. Like, what are the claims that they're making? Why do you think they're wrong?
Well, the thing is the hemp industry that I've observed for like 3 different legislative sessions, which is over 6 years, has lobbied for age gating.
Yeah.
And it never passed.
Yeah.
But now their major claim is that it's destructive to children to get hold of it, and it's marketed to children, and that, there's some nefarious person out there that's looking for kids to sell dope to, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Most of the shops every shop that I've been in, I guess, has a sign that says 21 and older.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the law enforcement are coming out and saying that they're concerned about kids getting it, and the legislature is not getting behind an age gate, saying only 21 and up or whatever the number might be, maybe 18. I don't know. But law enforcement is concerned about their ability to police that. What is the concern? What is the fear that law enforcement is testifying today?
Well, they're saying that,
and not all law enforcement. Certainly, there's some law enforcement like yourself that is, more on the side of like, don't pass SB 5.
And it doesn't make the world a better place. What he's talking about, protecting the kids, but what he's going to do is set up a underground system where, people could access fentanyl laced marijuana products or something, because the alternative is not there where they can go into a retail store. We got a pretty good situation here in Texas now. And really you need an age gate, but the industry has been lobbying for it, but the legislature hadn't done it.
Yeah.
And they're going to turn around and blame the industry for their own failures.
Yeah.
It doesn't wash.
Yeah. So from your perspective, what is the right move would be to just get the age gate?
I think the age gate is critical. It's just insane that a 10-year-old can go into a convenience store, and if they'll sell it to him, which they probably won't.
Yeah.
And again, where's he going to come up with $20-$30? I guess kids have more money today than I thought, but
they'll find a way.
But it's just not. They're going to have their older sister or older brother go in and buy it or something.
Yeah.
And there's laws to address that, contributing to delinquency of minor.
Yeah.
There's laws on the book, but we need an age gate.
Yeah. Okay.
And the people who violate that need to be prosecuted. The statistic that they offer is like 4 out of 5 people oppose criminalization of hemp. Okay. But also like 5 out of 5 don't want kids having access to it.
Yeah, I've yet to meet somebody in my lifetime, but certainly when this whole debate started back in January of this year, when the Texas legislature got in session, I've yet to meet anybody that wants children to have this.
Well, okay, but the legislature's had multiple opportunities to enact age gate, and age laws, and they haven't done it. So, support by omission?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, it's insane. The situation that we've got, we don't want kids going in and buying this.
Yeah. So we don't want kids going in and buying this. And so the simple solution would be to age gate it and prosecute those that break that law.
Seriously, yes.
Yeah. Seriously, bring down the hammer on them, because we don't want that. Similar to, say, alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. However, their solution seems to be, okay, we'll just ban the whole thing except for maybe CBD, CBG. I think there's whatever. Leave those alone and allow those sort of gummies or products to be sold. But anything with THC is no good anymore. Is what they're going for, and they do couch it. And we got to protect the children. However, I'm wondering, in your experience as a law enforcement officer over 3 decades, is that correct?
Yes.
It's a long time being a police
3.5.
officer.
Well, licensed police officer, as I only had like 20 years of actual enforcement.
Sure.
I've been retired a while.
Well, that's 20 more years than me, so that's good. So your experience as an active police officer, how often was THC, a part of whatever crime that you're responding to? Let's leave out the crime of actually, at that time, marijuana was illegal, so that would have been if you're responding to that. But let's say it was like a violent crime or a domestic disturbance or reckless driving or something like that. How often was it THC?
Rarely, very rarely was it THC. Because you had narcotics diversion, which is prescription drugs that were a problem. And then, obviously methamphetamine, cocaine, that sort of thing. Those are the substances that have a devastating effect on a family.
Okay.
Where hemp would probably have a devastating effect on available Doritos.
Sure. Right. So. Yeah. The local corner store might run out. So, you're painting a picture here. You respond to a domestic disturbance, wife and husband or our boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, they're fighting, it's getting all out. How often would it be, hey, there's some THC is involved versus, I don't know, you see open containers of liquor on the coffee table?
Probably 75% involved alcohol.
Yeah.
At some level, somebody was consuming alcohol.
Okay.
And so, but as far as THC, no, I didn't work one. The only place where it might have come in, she was mad at him. He said, "Oh, he's got a stash over here."
Yeah. Right. Which is not necessarily the THC's fault. It's just their, own personal issues. So from a law enforcement officer's perspective, I'm trying to figure out what makes the job of a law enforcement officer more difficult. Is it THC?
Well, it certainly doesn't help when you have administrators running around. The guy testified before a congressional or Senate subcommittee that he's incompetent. He can't perform his job. He can't enforce regulations. We have to ban it because I'm not competent enough to enforce regulations. Is basically what he said. That undermines law enforcement.
I don't understand. So he's saying that the regulations that are in place, he has no way of enforcing them. And so therefore the only solution is to ban it?
That's what his testimony was.
What regulations was he? Do you remember what regulations he said he was having trouble?
It's going to be the proposed regulations because the industry is saying, well, we need an age gate, and he's saying, well, you can't enforce that, and you can't enforce an age gate, and basically, I think one of your other guests said when they test it, they have to test it for quantitative analysis rather than does it have THC or not.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of hiding behind that because I think that they know that the way that marijuana is tested at the state level in these laboratories is to apply heat to it, which converts it. And put that in perspective, that's like you use ephedrine to manufacture methamphetamine.
Yeah.
So if you arrest somebody for methamphetamine because they have ephedrine and you convert it to methamphetamine, you charge them. You can't do that. That's not going to fly.
So was the law enforcement agent that was testifying was saying that there was no way for him to enforce an age gate, or it was difficult to enforce an age gate?
Well, it was the concept. He is married to banning it.
Yeah.
And doom and gloom, and it's all going to be bad if we do this. Age gating is the one regulation that's on the table that's talked about. The other regulations about the level of THC in there is 0.3 milligrams, and
0.3% by dry weight concentration of THC.
Right.
Yeah. But I guess we have age gate and concentration laws for other products. I mean, specifically alcohol, of course. That's the easiest example, and it's the one that's most often used. I mean, is it difficult to enforce the 21 and up for alcohol?
No, it does take some efforts, and they do stings, and they run in people that try to buy it.
Yeah,
underage children, and that's a legitimate effort.
Yeah,
that they're doing to stem the flow of it to underage people.
Yeah, of course. I know I was in high school once. I know that high schoolers get alcohol one way or another.
One way or another.
Yeah, they'll do it. And, it certainly makes it harder that it's 21 and up. And there's lots of stores out there that will, ID very heavily. But yeah, I mean, I remember when I was in high school that sometimes people did get caught and there was punishment for it. However, with the I also remember in high school kids would get THC. And it wasn't, sure, it was not like the easiest thing in the world to do, but they still got it. And what they were getting was who knows what, but it was still possible. It was just through the black market.
Right.
Find some homeless guy in the drag or something like that to sell it to him. But I just find it interesting that the concept that it's difficult to enforce the age restriction for a police officer, since they do that already.
Right. And I agree. That's doing a disservice to law enforcement to say, oh, well, we can't do the job unless everything's illegal.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case.
So, I mean, I guess if everything's illegal, that would actually make your job a little bit harder, because then you have to enforce a lot more, I would think.
Well,
we don't need to talk. That's maybe going off on a tangent that we don't need to go on. But as far as the concentration goes, yeah, I mean, there's, what is vodka is like 80 proof typically, right? How do we know that it actually is 80 proof? Because the manufacturer tested it.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
And there's nobody, I don't know if police officers are out there testing vodka or whiskey or whatever it is to make sure, or the state of Texas generally, are they testing individual bottles to make sure that there's only 40% alcohol?
No, but a lot of that is tax revenue based.
Okay.
Because the tax is higher on liquor than it is beer and wine.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is just for no other reason than the state wants to make sure that they get their piece of the pie. Yeah.
But as far as just the enforcement goes, there's no problem in enforcing that, is what I'm asking.
No, because what you look at is is a DWI or selling to underage minors, things like that, and everything. That's already handled.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah.
And I think law enforcement does a good job. But tell you what, they do a lot better job out patrolling, catching the guy who's driving DWI than worrying about whether somebody's got a couple of grams of hemp or in their pocket.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're out there patrolling as a police officer, you get somebody with a driving erratically. What's your first assumption?
There's actually a long list of, okay, do they fail to dim their headlights? Do they ride on the line? There's a whole list that is cumulative to, okay, once you get to this number, that guy's probably drunk.
Okay.
And it works almost every time.
Interesting. I didn't know that. You guys have a secret test that we're all taking, but we don't know it.
Well, it's observation. It's
sure.
That's what police officers do.
Yeah, of course.
Fail to dim headlights, driving on, crossing the line, unable to maintain single marked lane of travel, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And so when you're, when you run into somebody that is driving like that, more often than not, it's alcohol. Was it ever THC?
I don't ever remember stopping anybody for THC. I guess it's possible because
no one wants intoxicated drivers.
Nobody, right? Exactly. Nobody wants kids having it, and nobody wants intoxicated drivers.
Yeah,
and that's where we want to focus our resources because that's where people pass. That's where people die.
Yeah. So the solutions for law enforcement would be, I think what you're saying is, the age gate. Obviously, make it 21 and up. I don't know if it would be 18 and up like cigarettes, but whatever. Let's say 21. And treat it, if you're driving intoxicated, whether it's THC or alcohol or whatever the substance is, cocaine, fentanyl, like that's all bad, and don't do that. And police officers need to police that.
And there's a mechanism to do that.
Yeah. What is that mechanism?
Well, it's driving under the influence.
Yeah.
It's DWI, DUI.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if you're driving a boat and stoned or something. But it is harder for a police officer to make a case. I think one of your previous guests pointed out the sympathies. The jury is not particularly sympathetic to law enforcement arresting somebody for small quantities of marijuana.
Yeah.
And so that's a burden. But really, we've accomplished a lot just getting that person off the street.
Yeah.
Whether we prosecute them or not, God, I hate to say that, but that's true. If the person gets taken off the street, but so.
What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, if you've got an intoxicated person, you go down and they've got mandatory blood draws that they can do, so they can determine what your level
Blood concentration?
Blood concentration is. If you're over the legal limit. Yeah. Over the 0.08.
Yeah.
And so that's defined, but with they do the field sobriety tests on the roadside and everything, and that's evidence that's offered in court. And I still say that a police officer can make the case, even if the person is just intoxicated on marijuana, by doing a good investigation, a good interview, good roadside interdiction, where they have them do the tests and everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if the jury says, he'd probably been all right and make it home.
Yeah. Sure. I think in the case of alcohol, the jury probably wouldn't say that. But with the case you're referring to, I think my previous guest, DA, 143rd District DA, Sarah Stogner, describing that she can't get a grand jury to indict on any level of THC, really. Like they're just not interested in that. So if they make it illegal, it's not like legal or illegal. They're not doing anything about it. The people don't want that. So from a law enforcement point of view, okay, now everything is illegal, the THC gummies, whatever, people are still going to get it from the black market, or they'll cross state lines and bring it back, whatever. I guess that's also black market in this case. But
you can have it shipped to your house now too. Okay,
so I, shipped through the mail. Since it's federally legal, I guess I could do that. But
right.
In this case, the law enforcement, they're kind of running up against a tree here, running up against the wall, because they would be arresting someone for THC or hemp-based THC. They take it to the DA, and the DA says, I'm not going to do anything with this because the grand jury is not going to do anything with it. So stop sending me this. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, one of the concerns about where she was is I just wonder how many black people went before the grand jury for that. I think maybe it's a shortage of minorities affects her ability to get a grand jury behind them.
Yeah.
You have white grand jurors and a white person that's charged with possession of marijuana, but a black person goes in there, they might not have as good a ride as.
Well, I mean, maybe that's true. I know that in Travis County, it's going to be pretty much the same. Like I can't imagine the DA here having any luck getting a marijuana charge on anybody. But maybe I'm mistaken.
No, I think you're right there. But Austin is an island.
Sure, but even Dallas or Houston or anything like that, if it's a low level marijuana or THC, hemp-based THC, I just don't see that happening. Do you see it differently?
I do. I think minorities have a real problem with this.
Yeah.
That white people don't have.
Okay. So build on that. What happens with the hemp-based THC? People can get it at a vape shop or gas station or whatever the case may be. Maybe there's also a lot of health food stores that sell it nowadays. Okay. So if this gets banned, what happens in those scenarios? If
it gets banned?
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna fill them jails up.
Okay. They're gonna fill the jails up with mostly minorities, is what you're saying.
Well, they're gonna run out of minorities, and they're gonna be putting the white people in jail. And then, like I think your previous guest said, what did she say? She said maybe some soccer moms need to get arrested, and that's the reality. She's stating the reality.
So you're saying once soccer moms start getting arrested, then there will be like a big enough uproar to change it?
Right.
Okay. Interesting. So a ban would put pressure not only on the courts, but the prison system, and obviously put pressure on minority communities. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Well, yeah, it's hard to imagine that the minority communities could be more impacted.
Sure.
But they could definitely be positively impacted if, Senate Bill 54 passes and they have expungements for prior convictions.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about Senate Bill 54, but yeah, I mean, I don't mean to imply that there's, minority communities are using more than white communities. I know that THC, hemp-based THC, especially now that it's been legalized in Texas or has been legal in Texas, I mean, plenty of people from all walks of life are using these gummies regularly.
Right.
Yeah. And you're saying that if it gets banned, there's one set of people that's going to be really disproportionately impacted, while the other set's going to be, yeah, they're getting it from the black market, they're doing something illegal, but they're not going to necessarily they're not going to feel it.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate analysis of it.
And your analysis is very valuable because you have experience in this.
And so I think what's going to happen is if it's a white girl, it's hemp.
Yeah.
If it's a brown guy or a black guy, it's going to be marijuana.
Okay.
And he's going to go to jail.
Yeah. Okay. So what is Senate Bill 54?
So I'm sorry, you kind of got me at a disadvantage. I just heard about this last night.
That's okay.
So Senator Johnson has proposed a bill that will address the age gate. It addresses, it opposes a excise tax on marijuana to fund the enforcement of it. And I think it even includes home grow.
Okay.
So
I mean, that's a full legalization bill.
Well, yes, it is a full legalization bill, but it addresses what they say can't be done.
Okay.
There's a structural framework for the enforcement of it, and it would be great if that could pass.
And if that, right. So in lieu of that not passing, I mean, if that doesn't pass and SB 5 also doesn't pass, then we're just sort of stuck at the status quo where we are today, where there's, hemp-based THC at vape shops, at, gas stations, wherever they are. People still have access to them. Kids could buy them legally, though stores don't typically do that, and no one wants them to do that. We're just at the status quo. What happens in that scenario with law enforcement officers? Are their jobs more difficult? If nothing changes, are law enforcement officers' jobs more difficult, more dangerous? Are they at more risk for, I don't know, getting harmed on the job, injury on the job, or shootouts, or whatever the case may be?
No, because I think it's just like with the concealed carry legislation passed, officers can do their jobs the same way that they've been doing it.
Yeah.
You got some officers that are going to perceive that someone of color is a greater threat, so that they need to be dealt with more harshly. And somebody who's not, probably can just send them on down the road, make them throw it away or whatever.
Yeah. So
I don't think it's going to change anything.
If SB 5 does not pass and SB 54 also does not pass, again, just status quo, like nothing changes. Last year is the same as this year. Law enforcement officers' jobs are not more difficult.
No, I don't believe so. I think that the good officers, the officers who make us safer, make you safer, me safer, my wife, my grandchildren, my daughter, the ones that make them safer are focused on not on hemp enforcement or enforcing some plant regulation. They're out there looking for a drunk that might run over somebody. Yeah.
So it's not the THC that's making Texas, I don't know, less safe.
I haven't seen any evidence to support that. If there's an allegation that public safety is at risk because of it, I haven't seen anything to support it. What we do have is, down in Belton Temple, where they're running search warrants and they're telling the public that they're keeping the kids safe, and that they had complaints that kids were getting hold of this dope, but then they do an investigation.
They're getting a hold of hemp-based THC, like gummies and stuff like that, from a vape shop or something.
Right. That's what they're saying is, because it exists, kids are going to get it.
Yeah.
Kids are going to get it. And so they conduct this investigation, they run search warrants, they do uncover buys, but nobody's gone to jail. And I'm not buying it.
Okay.
I just don't believe them.
So
I think it's a political stunt.
So you're saying in Belton they're doing there's an operation to, I guess, stop kids from buying the hemp-based THC.
Right.
Even though it's not illegal, but still good. I don't want kids to buy it either. They're running this operation to stop it, but what's happened?
Well, they said that they had complaints from officers and citizens.
Yeah.
So then they sent in an undercover investigator who supposedly bought products that tested over the limit.
Okay.
But they still didn't arrest those people. What they did is they went and got an evidentiary search warrant and cleaned out their entire inventory and put the place out of business.
Okay.
And then nobody still went to jail.
Right.
Now, if somebody's selling dope to kids, everybody that I can imagine would want somebody to go to jail behind that.
Yeah, of course.
Because we don't want kids to have drugs.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So they took the inventory to test it to make sure, and their claim is that it was above whatever was advertised. They said it was, I don't know, 5 milligrams, but it turned out to be 50 or something like that.
Well, the video that I saw was the Allen chief of police said that some of the stuff that he seized was 78%, which is, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, 78%
That's
THC.
ridiculous.
Okay. And and you're saying that in that investigation, there's been no arrests made, nobody, just that one, the only people that have been affected by that is just that business that had the inventory. Now they're closed, but no arrests have been made.
I can't find any records. Of course, they really don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Because they know it won't hold up to scrutiny.
Okay.
I believe that it won't hold up to scrutiny.
Okay.
But they're not the most forthcoming with information.
Okay. And when did that happen?
That was last month, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in July.
Right. Well, I guess I just, I'm trying to figure out what it is that law enforcement wants and why. What is it that law enforcement wants to happen and why? And what is what's the truth behind it all? I'm not saying that anybody's necessarily a liar or anybody's, out there, trying to do, nefarious things. But, law enforcement officers certainly have a difficult job. And if I'm compassionate to the idea that, I don't want their jobs to be more difficult than they already are. I just don't know where hemp-based THC falls in that equation. Does it make their jobs more difficult? Does it make their jobs easier if, more people are using hemp-based THC than alcohol? Theoretically, does that make their job more difficult?
No, I believe it makes it easier. There's a lot of violence that's behind alcohol that's related to the overconsumption of alcohol.
Yeah.
We're not so much on THC, somebody looking for some place to go lay down.
You're right. So there's a violent guy on, 6th Street or something like that running around yelling, whatever. You're saying that it's more dangerous for that person and the police officer and the public around them if they're on alcohol, if they're drunk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Other than, if he's using hemp, they may have to carry him to the car. It may hurt their back carrying him to the car.
Sure. He's not.
Because he's out of it.
Yeah, he's probably not out there screaming. But,
no.
Yeah, or if there's, the battered women's shelter. How many of those, the poor women in the battered women's shelters are there because of THC-based violence or alcohol-based violence?
I would think that the THC, I can't relate THC or THC to violence at all.
Right. So that's my confusion. in all of this is that I'm trying to understand where the danger is for law enforcement agents. And it sounds like what you're saying is, in your many years of experience, you can't relate the THC to violence because you never experienced that, and you're not aware of it happening to other police officers either.
That's right. That is actually right. Violence, just like any other drug deals, the only violence related to THC is whenever you have a drug deal in an alley and one of them tries to jack the other one.
Yeah.
But that's the black market that was eliminated by the 2018 Farm Bill.
Yeah.
It was crippled, almost devastated.
Yeah.
Because people could just go to the store and then they found out that, hey, this stuff works pretty good. So now there's no illicit market.
Yeah.
But you can bet that if they ban it in a state like Texas, especially, that the consumers have got basically the genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah. Did you ever have any run-ins with cartels or any sort of cartel activity?
No, I didn't.
Right. But just generally speaking, I mean, there's a black market with drugs and stuff like that does come across the border, and there is cartel activity. I mean, that also seems like if the black market thrives again, that would actually make law enforcement officers, I mean, there's black market for other drugs, obviously, but making it bigger, more vibrant, seems like that would make law enforcement officers' jobs more dangerous. If people are trying to get THC from the black market.
It could, but a lot of the deal is after 2018, a lot of people became consumers that would never, call a buddy up and say, hey, you got any, or they would never, ever purchase it.
Yeah. And
now you've got gummies and snacks or whatever, the Rice Krispie treats and everything. And people go, hey, this is great. I can sleep all night. So, I suppose that somebody's going to fill that gap.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as huge a gap as it is now because a lot of people are just going to stop using it.
Right. Someone's going to fill the gap, and it's not going to be someone that's operating a storefront in broad daylight.
Right. Exactly.
Where you can, safely park your car, walk in, do the transaction, and go home.
Right.
It's going to be, calling your buddy, going to an alley, getting a delivery from somebody that you don't know that maybe has other nefarious activities going on that would actually increase the risk of violence or negative effects.
That's what I see. That's where I see it going.
Yeah. Okay.
Something's going to fill that gap.
Yeah.
And if it's not a legal product that's taxed and regulated, then it's going to be the black market.
Yeah. So, okay. So your hope is that this gets banned, that the hemp-based THC, SB5, fails.
Yes.
And that the Texas legislature, in lieu of that, would enact legislation like an age gate. Is there any other legislation that you think or regulation that you think that the Texas legislature could enact on the hemp-based THC that would be beneficial, that would actually, not only help the industry, but also help law enforcement agents, law enforcement officers do their job?
The biggest thing is, because now they have to buy the product from out of state because they can't raise it in the state. And I know there's one grower that moved to New Mexico, but that had a nice facility here in Central Texas.
Yeah.
And they drove him out. So I think with the increased revenue and the increased jobs, and that there is an enforcement solution. And again, that enforcement solution is we don't want anybody driving drunk. We don't want kids getting hold of this.
Yeah.
And so I think they really need to bring it back in state and make Texas a state that can actually profit from this.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding correctly, what would be best for law enforcement officers would be to treat hemp-based THC similarly to alcohol. Age gate, 21, driving while intoxicated, that's illegal. Anything else, like all of that stuff, all of it, just treat it exactly like they do alcohol.
And that's a good solution.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you having me here today.
Okay. Do you have social media or anything like that you want to plug?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Scott Gates, it's a pleasure speaking with you. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.